So Gary, thanks so much for your time. Looking at your results, it looks like your chemical segment was the real driver of the group's performance this time around. What drove the strong demand?
Good afternoon, Fifi. Yes, thank you. The chemical division did perform well. It was primarily as a result of a large acquisition that we concluded last year, which performed really well for the current year. So yeah, really pleasing performance from the diversified chemical as well as the industrial segments.
I mean, acquisitions were quite a big theme in your growth last year. What's the plan for acquisitions in this period ahead?
Fifi, over the last 24 months, we've invested a large amount in both acquisitions and expansion activities. And our objective for this year was really to properly integrate those acquisitions and finalize the various projects, which I believe we did successfully. So really looking forward into the new year is to try and produce a clean set of results and extract full value out of those investments and they really reflect a return on what we've invested. Obviously, we are an ambitious company, so to the extent that opportunities arise, we will obviously assess them and pursue those ones that fall within our strategy.
And Gary, where was business not so great? I did see a bit of pressure coming to the automotive business, but perhaps insight into exactly what drove the slightly less better performance in this division, and also what you're planning to do to make things better going forward.
Yeah, I think there were two areas where we found conditions quite challenging. Firstly, in the automotive components business. However, it was as a result of two new model introductions. So the VW Polo and the BMW X3 were introduced during this year. And obviously that has an impact on build volumes where you kind of gear down, do a changeover, and then gear up again. So really a positive signal and just part of the process. So there we're expecting a good year next year. And then the other area where we found conditions quite challenging was in our logistics business, where we are fairly exposed to the fuel sector, where consumption levels were down, as well as to the mining and cement sectors where, again, consumption levels were down, and we found that quite challenging.
I mean, if we stay with mining right now, it is the big story today with all the job losses that we are seeing from that sector. What does that mean for your ability to deliver on continued growth?
Well, our exposure to mining is in a fairly niche sector, being high mineral content products, and it's generally in remining activities. So we're not miners. We really do materials handling on the mines. So we are exposed, but not to the same extent as the mines themselves.
But the manufacturing sector in which you play in, I mean, we have been seeing data sets coming from that sector. Things are not looking pretty yet. The results that you delivered today suggest otherwise. How are you managing to continue to grow in a tough manufacturing space?
Fifi, we've made some really important investments in new technology and expanded our plants using new technology equipment, which gives us certain efficiency benefits and certain product quality benefits. And we've really used those to grow our market share in an economy and an environment that's been relatively flat. So our growth is a direct result of the investments that we've made.
And perhaps an outlook for your staff headcount there, as you talk about increased investments in new technology. We're seeing other companies that do the same, that end up reducing the number of workers. I mean, is this in KAP's plan?
Fifi, our employment numbers have been relatively stable. We've been fortunate enough that where we've invested this capital, it has been able to facilitate growth, and generally with that growth, we're able to redeploy people. So to date, we've been relatively stable in terms of our headcounts.
And Gary, as we continue to read business confidence figures here in South Africa, also an area that's not looking too bright. As a businessman here on the continent, in the country rather, your message to the policy makers as to what it will take for businessmen like you to invest more in the country?
Well, I think, Fifi, we've taken perhaps an alternate view that we have invested heavily. So in the last 5 years, I think we've invested 12 billion in the country, in assets in this country. We still believe it's a great place to do business. There's work to be done from a political perspective, and we trust that the powers that be are moving in the right direction. We're quite confident that the right moves are being made. And as long as that can continue, we will continue to invest. And we're actually quite optimistic.
Good to hear. Gary, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time. Of course, that was the CEO of KAP Industrial, Gary Chaplin.